Thank you, Kyrie, and thank you, everyone, for joining us. Good morning to all. On behalf of the Africa Transport Policy Program, we are delighted to welcome you to our first webinar in the Good Roads Connect Us All series, which is a public outreach series of its Resilient Road Asset Management Program. The series will take us through conversations on Africa's roads beyond the technical circles that we usually find ourselves in, where we will get to interact with leaders who make the decisions and businesses that build and move and power our continent. But roads, as we know, are a big part of our lives. While they don't scream at us and tell us, to pay for them, we enjoy them. They are interconnected to every aspect of our lives. But today we're going to be discussing who should pay for them. We enjoy riding our beautiful cars, driving them around on those roads. We enjoy connecting from farms to markets, getting to opportunities in big cities across our continent. And sometimes we have a sense of entitlement as we use those roads. So today we are going to discuss who should pay for them. Good roads connect us all, but who should pay for them? So today we'll have lots of senior voices from government, regional institutions, the private sector, and the national road funds. And our audience will be broad, and we'll have executives and leaders like you all and ordinary citizens who are a very big part of this conversation. As you know, conversations are catalysts for action. People may say, why are we here again today? To talk and talk and talk. We don't take action until we talk. As we do the talk, we get into motion and then we make things happen. So today I'm your moderator, Patrice Chua. I'm from Liberia, and I am a communications and international affairs policy communication strategist. I'm also an educator. I am a speech writer for leaders, and I'm here to drive you through this conversation today. We have a distinguished panelist of leaders, like I said. So thank you all for joining us across Africa and the world. We are delighted to have you. But today is a very crucial topic. Like I said, heavy investments have been made in road infrastructure. You look all around our continent, you see that there's investments, there are investments being made. But despite these investments, roads continue to deteriorate, and these deteriorations raise transport costs, and they reduce access to jobs and services, and they limit economic opportunities across our beautiful continent. So while these roads, like I said, do not tell us that they aren't free, someone always pays for them, either through fuel levies, tolls, freight charges, public budgets, or higher market prices. So today our conversation will focus on who bears the cost of good roads, whether current financing systems are fair and sustainable, why maintenance is often underfunded despite heavy investment in construction, whether industries that benefit from or that wear out the road network should contribute more, and what role should climate finance play as floods and extreme weather increasingly damage roads. We will also hear insights that will be drawn from a baseline survey and maturity assessment of roads funds across 15 African countries. So that's what we are here for today. And just a few housekeeping. Kyrie already set the tone for us. But just to, reiterate what she has said, the session is being recorded, and there's simultaneous English and French translation. you can go on the three dots on your screen at the bottom of your screen and click, and you will have access to French or English interpretation. And please use the chat feature as we go through the webinar, because we would like to hear from you. Your voices matter because this is a conversation that concerns us all. And we will make time at the end of the session to address all of your questions and interventions. So welcome again to our distinguished panelists, whom you will get to meet at the later on in the program, and to all of our guests and engaging audience from across Africa and the world. Thank you for joining us. Next, we will go into our introductory, our opening remarks by Mr. Lenaik Georgelan. He is the Director General of the EU Directorate for International Partnerships. Welcome, Mr. Lenaik Georgelan.
Thank you very much, Patrice, and a warm welcome to all delegates and colleagues to this first of a series of webinars linked to the fourth pillar of the current development plan of the ACCTP, which is on, and Patrice has said it, on resilient road asset management. We are actually very glad to finance from the EU this particular pillar and to work jointly with the ACCTP team and the engineering company TIPSA on this particular topic. We're actually also very proud and glad to be still the main funder of the fourth development plan of ACCTP. We have a long-standing relations collaboration with the World Bank, and this is meant to continue. We're very happy and proud to work on African transport policy programs since the initiation of ACCTP about 20 years ago. As you probably all know, the EU has an historical presence in the road sector in Africa on construction, rehabilitation of roads, but we've also done a lot to support the road funds, to support road agencies, in particular for the maintenance of the road assets. And this has been a challenge. We have to reckon it for many years and in many countries. Many countries have done substantial progress, sometimes ups and downs, and progress has probably been unequal between the different countries. So we still have today challenges to properly mobilize the necessary funding to maintain the road asset. We have challenges to properly plan interventions of the road agencies to maintain this road network. We have challenges in executing the budget that are being mobilized according to the plans. And nowadays, I think we are observing even more growing acute issues with climate change, which we need to integrate in the equation when we speak construction, rehabilitation, and maintenance of the road network. So it's a new challenge we need to look at very seriously. So with the study that has been and the survey which has been implemented by TIPSA and the ACCTP team, I think we have an extremely interesting benchmark that identifies the best practices in terms, again, of fund mobilizations, governance of road agencies, use of new tools for the road agencies' operations, in particular, the digitalization and digital tools that are emerging very quick. And we really hope that this study that will be presented today and in future webinars will be extremely useful for country delegates to prepare, promote reforms and improvements that are to be implementing in your countries. And that is of extremely importance that we constantly try to improve the way road maintenance funds, road agencies are operating. So I don't want to be too long, but my message is to our partner countries connected today. go through that study, use that study to prepare proposed reforms to your decision makers. And you will have the opportunity to see some example in countries that are performing quite well and that can be replicated in your country. I'm quite convinced of that. And please solicit the ACCTP team, solicit TIPSA, which is with us for another few years, and solicit, very importantly, my colleagues based in EU delegations in many countries across Africa. We still have transport as a priority sector under Global Gateway in many countries. So we have colleagues very eager to work with you on such reforms and such an important topic as road asset management. To my colleagues from EU delegations, I've seen a number connected. Please use that study, the survey that you will see presented today and soon also published on the website of SSATP. We will promote and share it, of course. Please use that survey to work with our partners, counterparts in country to prepare those reforms, promote those reforms as a partner, as a donor, probably to the extent possible with the local teams of World Bank, because I know we coordinate a lot locally with the World Bank teams and other development partner teams, as a matter of fact. And also, don't hesitate to solicit TIPSA, to solicit the ACCTP team for them to give the support to whatever work you are preparing, undertaking in country. We've had very recently, in the framework of that study, two missions of those teams in Mozambique and Botswana, and the feedback we've got is very positive. So I'm very eager to see those kind of joint work being replicated in as many countries as we can across the continent. And of course, to my World Bank and TIPSA colleagues, I first want to commend again, because I've told you already on this study and the work that is being done. Of course, I've seen the report and presentations. I think it's very practical, interesting, straight to the point, with priorities identified and best practices identified to be effectively implemented and replicated. So I hope that you will have the strength to follow up on the study and to support our partner countries with your local teams, with our local teams, to really try to operationalize as much as we can the recommendations that you've made in these reports. Of course, you will see that not all countries in sub-Saharan Africa have been covered by the study. It would have been too much, but we've heard already feedbacks from countries that have not been covered. I think 15 have been studied. Other countries are interested also to be looked at and to have such a survey. So that is something that we are discussing and looking at on how we could replicate or at least put at disposal the methodology to be assessed in those countries that could not be covered in that first study. It would be fantastic, I think, to have at a certain point a survey, a study that would cover most, if not all, the road plans, road maintenance plans, road agencies across the continent to have the perfect benchmark to be able to work on. So again, very eager to hearing the presentations, of course, looking at the presentation that will be made by our experts on this survey, this study, but extremely eager to hear the reactions and perspectives from the panelists and from the participants on the work that you will see presented today. Very eager to participate in the next sessions and to cover the entire series of webinars that will happen from now on today until I think end of this year, or probably a bit even in 27. It will be a series. You will get the information, and with these documents, with the study, with the webinar, I think we have the perfect ground to work, reform, and improve the way we manage our assets on roads in sub-Saharan Africa. I will leave it there. I think the most important is to witness the study, get information, and exchange on perspectives in your countries. Thank you very much, and I trust we will have a very interesting seminar today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lenaik Georgelin, for that powerful, those powerful opening remarks. Indeed, like you said, the conversations that we will have here today will help us work, reform, and continue to improve our roads. And we are now at a scene setting, the scene setting part of the program. Earlier, if you remember, I said conversations are catalysts for action. But we cannot take action if we don't have evidence. And so this is why this part of the program is very important. So we are pleased now to welcome the SSATP RRAM pillar lead at the World Bank, Ms. Ocean Keu, and Mr. Jose Cordovilla, TIPSA's team lead for a technical, a non-technical presentation.
Thank you so much, Patrice. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Good day, everybody. I'm Ocean Keu, Senior Transport Specialist at the World Bank, and I'm also honored to be the SSATP pillar lead, indeed, for this new pillar on resilient road asset management. I'm very delighted to be here with you today for our very first webinar under this new pillar for SSATP. It's really the first one of a series, so we hope to see you back very soon, for the next ones. I want to take the opportunity right before, starting with our very short presentation. I want to thank everyone that was involved in the preparation of this webinar. I want to thank my colleagues at the SSATP, in particular Kaori and Helen, colleagues at the World Bank, European Commission, and TIPSA, as well as specifically our brilliant panelists for agreeing to join us today. On this note, now to the presentation, and it's really simply about setting the tone for the session today, as I'm very excited about the panel, as you may be. So roads are how the African continent connects. The big question is why should we push for better practices, specifically when it comes to maintenance of our networks in Africa? As we know, it's crucial to ensure sustainability of these road networks, particularly, the corridors, strategic networks, and obviously also in rural areas, because roads in Africa particularly carry still most of people and most of the goods throughout the continent. They link us to basic services, basic necessities, farmers to markets, people to schools, and obviously linking goods to ports. But why it's even more important is that it's providing connectivity to the most vulnerable people, right? And as we know, in the context of climate change, impacts are increasing, particularly when it comes to the disruptions on transport networks and economic implications. We see that generally, globally, the cost of transport disruptions for households and firms in low to middle income countries varies between about 400 billion to 650 billion per year. And particularly in Africa, supply chain disruptions slow down the GDP, by a large amount, from around, 3 to 4.5%, back in 2021. And so the shipping and transport costs keep increasing. So what we should really consider is collectively, in the public and private sectors, what actions should be taken so that we can see kind of a more positive impact, particularly from the socioeconomic perspectives. And, as we know, if the right actions are taken, the right investments are made in climate resilient transport infrastructure, and particularly maintaining those networks that we keep building, but that may fail, because of degradation and deterioration. Investing in those can really lead to an estimated 4.2 trillion increase in global GDP by 2040, and obviously through improved access to markets and services. And one key element is that $1 invested in our networks is really, $4 back for the overall economy. So now, what is SSATP doing? So quickly, and as also Lenaik mentioned, so we launched this new pillar on resilient asset management and program. So back in March 2025, it's pretty new, and we're kind of excited of the collaboration and the momentum that has been taking place, with governments across Africa, public and private sector partners. What we believe in is that we would like to support African countries and governments go from reactive maintenance to more proactive and more resilient maintenance programs overall, better planning. What the program under my leadership is focusing on is really one, providing knowledge through studies, and I will let also Jose mention a bit of that. What's coming up very soon. We're focusing on supporting the establishments of reforms through data evidence, and specifically at the continental level. What we've realized through consultation so far is that African countries are really now eager to collaborate at sub-regional and regional levels to have cohesive systems, right? And not just at the national level. So that's a big win that we want to build upon. And also the key dimensions, obviously, of our work, are based on one, obviously, smarter funding and financing, and the panel will go into that. Second, resilient planning and maintenance. So what we call in the SSATP and the World Bank, focusing on the life cycle approach of infrastructure. So really looking at the whole life cycle from planning stage to maintenance and operations. And obviously that needs better digital systems, particularly road asset management systems in Africa. Around only less than a third of countries are using some type of systems that actually need to be improved. So we need to push on that front. And lastly, obviously, better enhancing institutions and skills to retain, skills of people and have kind of strong programs to help do that. So that's how we're going to help in the next couple of years, and we're very excited to do so and to share through webinars also, kind of like where we're all at collectively in terms of where should we push this agenda. Over to you, Jose.
Thank you so much, Ocean, and thanks everybody for being here. It's a pleasure, and we're really excited to be here, to be able to explain the work that we're doing to support you. So on some details of the work that we are doing with SSATP and the partners, this study that Lenaik from the EU was explaining earlier has taken us through a journey of working with many countries, 15 countries, where we've had the opportunity to identify what are the real the challenges and the opportunities specific to African countries. In terms of how to have better roads and how to maintain those roads so they keep a good service, there are challenges that are rather unique or specific to Africa. Of course, the exposure to climate shocks and extreme weather events is a top one that you know and experience. But also the fact that there is insufficient funding, not only for developing the networks, but for maintaining these networks in good condition once they're built, which is disrupting these networks is a major issue. Also, some of the institutions involved in responsible for managing these road networks, financing them, have capacity issues and in some cases maturity issues. The less developed institutions and in many cases, unfortunately, but this is not unique to Africa, not sufficiently transparent institutions. And we also identify an issue of not enough good data that is required, basically objective data about the roads, about the needs, about the condition of the roads, about the investment needs, etc. That is needed. On the other hand, there are also great opportunities and leverages specific to African countries. One of them, which is the focus of this particular first study that we'll be publishing very soon, is the fact that many, up to 35 African countries, have road maintenance funds, which are dedicated institutions specifically for road maintenance, and they've been in place for a long time. They were established with the support from SSATP and the World Bank originally, and they still keep going. You should take advantage and make use of these institutions as they are unique to the African context. Also, there is a climate and adaptation financial market that is building up and that is gaining maturity and is gaining experience. So that's something to be tapped into, specifically to solve and to address the climate change problems. Also, the private sector is growing and very eager to invest in African infrastructure, and there are certain conditions that have to be met that many partners and countries are working on. But this is also a growing market and a growing opportunity. And ultimately, also technology, the current technology, starting with satellite data and also AI, the rise of AI and asset management systems are making it faster and easier to advance. And this we identify in the study. Let me just give you quickly, a few findings that we've seen from the evidence that we've gathered. One is that it is important to separate raising, the institutions or the organizations that raise funds from those that spend it, that basically execute the works. This makes the process much more basically transparent and powerful. And we have the evidence in the report that shows you the correlation between this independence and the performance. Also, the institutions that are dedicated to financing the maintenance, the road funds, when they have independent boards, basically boards that take independent decisions based on objective data, and also they have a balanced representation of not only the public sector but also users and private sector, these institutions deliver better and more. Certainly those that have access to good data and that have data that is shared between the road agencies and the road funds also deliver better, and this is a key area that we'll be concentrating on. And finally, a key finding also is that most African countries in financing road maintenance, they rely heavily on the fuel levy, which is an advantage because then you have a steady source of income, but also you need to take into account the inflation and the fluctuations in the price of fuels that of course will have an impact on how much money you have available. Ultimately, what we have found also not only in this road fund study but also in all the studies that we're doing with the road agencies is a deeper evidence of all, and it's basically that maintaining good roads and fixing the problems with roads, you cannot do one by one as if they were isolated assets. The resilience of the economies, from what they get from roads, is about managing the whole network as one system. From planning to funding and building and maintaining it together. So and looking at the whole life cycle, like Ocean was saying, network level management is the key to achieving resilience in the country. And just to finalize, as it was pointed out, this large study is coming up soon. It's going through the process of peer review, mandatory, to ensure the top quality of and rigor of the report, and then it will be published and made available to everybody. For the countries and the institutions that are interested in this and have not participated, we're very glad to talk, as Lenaik was offering, and share details about this while it's being published. And it's a continental study, the first continental study that's been done since these funds were created on the performance and how they are performing and what steps they should take to move on to the next generation of road funding in Africa. And with that, I'm really looking forward to hearing our panelists and the attendees. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ocean Keu and Mr. Jose Cordovilla for that presentation, very insightful. And I like what he said, maintaining good roads cannot be done in isolation. We are aware of the South African Ubuntu principle, which states that I am because we all are. So you cannot do one road on the other side and leave the other one on the other side, or do something else that is of more priority than the other. All of them must be done side by side, just like our South African Ubuntu philosophy, which states that we are all interconnected and linked in this progressive journey of developing and advancing our continent. Thank you again for that presentation. And now this is the part that we all are here for, listening to all of our distinguished panelists. When I saw their names, I was so excited. Some familiar faces and some very new, but we are all in this big family of working together to ensure that our continent and its future arrive well. Okay, so now I will go into introducing our speakers for the day. And I'm sure, like all of you in the audience, keep your questions and comments coming in. Feel free to send direct questions to our panelists because they are here for all of us. We are grateful that they made time to join us today. So our first panelist is a young leader. When we talk about Africa's roads, we are not just talking about the roads of today. We are talking about the roads for future generations. And this is why her voice on this panel and her insights are crucial. And that's Mrs. Josita Wento, Nouvelle Wento, who is the National Road Fund Manager of Liberia. And she brings a wealth. She's a young Liberian progressive leader, a young lady that's doing so well to advance not only Liberia, but is always in the conversation around development of the African continent. She is the youngest of the Rose Fund's institutions in Africa. She's a minerals and energy economist trained at the Colorado mines and an IRF certified bridge inspector. She has driven reforms that grew the fund's revenue from about 18 million United States dollars in 2023 to 33 million and made it one of Liberia's top performing public institutions on audit compliance. She is financing the country's road maintenance equipment fleet and leading Liberia's first major public-private partnership to pave 255 kilometers of roads. She also serves as the vice president of the West African Focus Group of the African Roads Maintenance Funds Association and brings hands-on experience of how a national road fund raises, ring fences, and channels revenues to keep a network in service. So let us give a round of applause in the chats for Mrs. Josita Nouvelle Wento, our first panelist joining us from the National Road Fund of Liberia. Second is Mr. Jean-Louis Billon. Mr. Jean-Louis Billon is from the CEFICA Group. He was chairman and chief executive of the CEFCA Group, one of West Africa's leading agro-industrial groups. And this group is active in palm oil, rubber, and sugar, whose operations depend on the road network to move agricultural products to markets and to ports. He joined the family group in the 1990s, building it into one of the region's largest private employers. From 2012 to 2017, he served as Côte d'Ivoire's Minister of Commerce, Crafts, and SME Promotion, and he has also chaired the country's Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He brings together the perspective of private policy and the private industry that relies on and helps where the road network energy. So we are happy to have Mr. Jean-Louis Billon, who brings a private sector perspective that will greatly enrich our discussions today. Welcome, Mr. Billon, to the panel. Please give him a round of applause in the chat. in the chat. Our next panelist, you cannot talk about the history of roads on the African continent without mentioning this particular panelist. He brings to our panel today enriching insights on roads. That's Dr. Maurice Nyati Mwamba. He brings a policy governance perspective, and he is a transport economist whose career spans business, public administration, research, and regional integration institutions across Central Africa. He has worked on sectoral governance, transport policy and strategy, economic studies, capacity building, and on improving the financing of road maintenance through the concessioning of roads equipment such as way bridges and tolls. a former Minister of Transport and member of the Parliament of the Democratic Republic of Congo. He is currently Commissioner of Spatial Planning and Infrastructure at the Commission of the Economic Community of Central African States, ECAS. He brings the regional and cross-border perspective on how corridors are financed, maintained, and made resilient. That's Dr. Maurice Nati Muamba. Welcome to the panel, sir, and we are delighted to have you. Please give him a round of applause in the chat. And next we have someone whose background has been over 25 years in the private sector, and they're also going to add that climate financing and infrastructure investment lens to our conversation today. And that's Mr. Alan Munyua, who is into infrastructure investment, and he is a Kenyan infrastructure investment executive who has spent close to a decade financing and developing greenfield road, transport, and energy infrastructure across East Africa. Until recently, he was Senior Investment Director and East Africa Director at Iridium, a leading independent greenfield infrastructure fund manager, where from 2016, he led the firm's regional development and investment activity. And with road and transport private partnerships at the center of his portfolio, a consistent advocate for long-term private capital blended with finance and strong ESG standards, he brings the private sector's perspective to the question of how roads can be financed and maintained sustainably. He holds a degree in architecture from the University of Nairobi and a master's in settlements and infrastructure development from the Politecnico of Milano, and earlier worked with Trans-Century Shelter Afrique and PwC. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Alan Munyua, and please give him a round of applause as well as all of our distinguished panelists. Welcome to our conversation today on Good Roads Connect Us All, but who should pay for them? So that's why we are here today to discuss who should pay for good roads. And we will be going right into our session. So for the first question, this is a general question to all of our panelists, our distinguished panelists. We want to hear your insights on who should pay for good roads. Is it governments, taxpayers, road users, major industries, or all beneficiaries together? We will open the floor now to Mrs. Josita Nouvelle-Wento from the National Road Fund of Liberia to hear her initial reflections on that question of who should pay for roads.
Well, thank you very much, Patrice. Good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be on this platform to share my experiences. Well, the conversation around who should pay for roads, I first like to share this, that most Africans and most people, road users, see road as a government responsibility. They are right. And with most of the context in Africa is that roads are supposed to be freely used. But how we reclassify these roads is that roads are assets. Like we say, roads are the arteries of our economy. And so they should serve as an asset for government. And once it's an asset, it should be able to generate some form of revenue. Additionally, the responsibility that we see nowadays to finance these roads and maintain them should be shared, because the roads are not used only by government officials. They're not used only by road users, but it's a conglomerate of all of these people. So the government role, I think, in the financing of roads should mostly focus on driving and developing the policy and the institutional framework. But notwithstanding also that they also have a shared responsibility for ensuring the safety of the roads and how people travel along them. Additionally, we also have the road users whose contribution to the road are based on the user pay principle. For example, we have the most popular one that most people use to finance the road is the fuel levy. But as we're seeing more and more shock in the international market now, practitioners like us in the road sector are well focused on diversifying our portfolio, diversifying the stream of revenue, ring fencing it, and having it dedicated for the purpose of maintenance. But equally so, as the private sector use these roads too, they should also pay some form of a fee. And this is where the government comes in terms of creating that framework. The government, the private sector, the road user can all come together and implement projects using the PPP model where there is a private public partnership in maintaining these roads. But the conversation around it is a lot, but I think from my experience and exposure that the government should set the policy. The road user should contribute through the road user pay principle. There are different road users fees, and then also should be open for a private investor to invest into the different corridors that continuously generate funds. Back to you, Patrice.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Josita Nuvewento from the National Road Fund of Liberia for your initial reflections on who should pay for good roads. Indeed, roads are assets and shared responsibilities for all. Next, we will welcome the reflections of Mr. Jean-Louis Billon on this question, who should pay for good roads?
Oui, merci. Merci. Alors, je vais m'exprimer en français.
Thank you so much. I will
Dans mon groupe, en tout cas, groupe agro-industriel,
as part
nous
of
pratiquons les
my
routes
agribusiness
tout le temps.
group, we
Et
use
nous avons un
roads
réseau de
all
pistes
the time,
important
and
sur
we
nos
have
plantations.
a
Ce réseau de
network
pistes qui
of
traverse plein de villages
pathways that covers some
est
villages,
entretenu par nous-mêmes et parfois
and
fait par
we
nous-mêmes.
manage.
Sans aucune aide de
We
l'État.
maintain them
Et je pense que la
without
responsabilité de la
requesting
construction
any support
de bonnes
from the
routes
state,
relève
because for us
d'abord de l'État.
it pertains to the
La
state to build
maintenance
some good
peut
quality
relever en grande
roads.
partie du secteur privé
Maintenance can
qui
be
l'utilise
from
et
the private
avec
sector
une
that is using it,
contribution plus importante
and
de
with
certaines
a much more
industries quand ces industries
important contribution of
amènent
some
plus de pression sur les
industries
routes. Je pense par exemple à l'industrie
as
minière.
they exert
Aujourd'hui en
some
Côte d'Ivoire,
pressure on the
il y a
roads,
l'industrie
like
minière
the
qui se
mining
développe
industry here.
et
In Côte
cette
d'Ivoire, for
industrie
instance, this mining
emploie
industry is developing its
des
activities,
transports
and they
vraiment très
use
lourds qui
heavy
endommagent les routes,
transportation
mais
means
très
that
vite.
will
Et ça,
destroy, damage
je pense
the
que dans
roads
leur
very
fonctionnement, la
fast. So
maintenance
as
de la
part
route
of
leur
their
revient. Parce que c'est vraiment eux
operations,
qui
road
endommagent.
maintenance should
Nous avons
be
des systèmes
their
de
duty.
prélèvement
Now we
et
have
pour l'entretien
some
des routes. Le FER, le
system for
fonds
levy and
d'entretien
for
routier,
also for
est
road
alimenté
maintenance
par les péages
fair
et
in Côte d'Ivoire.
les méthodes
And
traditionnelles
this is the money comes
de financement,
from
donc en partie par
some
le
payments
prélèvement sur les carburants.
and also
Mais
through
là aussi,
some levy
il faut
from
que les fonds restent
the fuel. But
pour
we think that
ce pourquoi ils sont prévus.
this fund should be
Malheureusement, on a
dedicated to
vu, suite à certains audits, que
the reason
une grande
why
partie
they
de ces fonds
are
avaient
collected,
été
and
utilisés à
we
d'autres fins.
know
Donc il y a une
as
question de
part of
gouvernance
some
également. Donc je reste
audit
convaincu pour ma part
missions,
que la
there has
responsabilité de
been
l'État
some cases
dans la
where
construction des routes
some
est la
cases of
première des choses.
mismanagement occurred. So we say
Ensuite,
that
pour
building
la
roads
maintenance,
should pertain
nous avons
to
la
the
contribution
government, and for
en
the
partie du
maintenance,
secteur privé
we
et des autres
should have the
utilisateurs.
contribution
Mais quand on
of
parle
the
du
private
secteur
sector
privé,
and other
il faut
users.
savoir que
Now, when it
en
comes to
fonction de
the
la
private
densité du
sector,
secteur privé que
we
nous
should
avons,
know that
s'il n'y aura pas
according
suffisamment
to
d'entreprises, vous aurez peu de
what it
financement.
represents,
Et
because the less
la
company you
construction de
have,
la route doit
the
relever de l'État
less
parce que c'est l'État qui
funding
peut
you will have,
emprunter,
you will receive.
avoir des taux
Yes, for
concessionnaires,
sure,
ce que les privés
the
ne
state
pourront pas
is
avoir demain.
entitled to take loans.
Donc, il ne faut pas que l'État
At
fuit ses
some
responsabilités,
rates,
construire
what the private
les
sector cannot
infrastructures
have, to some extent. So, in fact,
la
the
maintenance
state
en grande
should
partie
build
par des concessions que l'on donne à des
this
entreprises
road, but we
privées
should
avec
think
une
of
responsabilité
including some
de
private
moyens et de
companies
résultats
just
là-dessus.
to
Maintenant,
assist them
dans
with
la
some
construction des routes, il
responsibilities
faut
in terms
voir un
of
peu
results.
ce que nous subissons
Now,
également.
when it comes
Je
to
prends l'exemple toujours de
building
la Côte d'Ivoire.
roads,
Nous
there
avons
are
construit
some
une autoroute
challenges.
et cette autoroute doit
Still
atteindre
dealing with the case of Côte d'Ivoire,
à
we
terme
build a
la
highway,
frontière
and
nord.
at the end of the day,
Mais
it
au fur et à
should
mesure que
reach
l'on
the
avance,
northern part of
on
the
abandonne
northern
l'ancienne route.
border of Côte
Alors que
d'Ivoire. But
l'autoroute
as we
qui est à
move,
péage
we abandon the former
se
one.
retrouve
Now,
saturée
whereas
et
the
l'ancienne
highway
route
with the
délaissée.
toll
On doit avoir
is
l'alternative, maintenir l'ancienne
saturated,
route
and the last
et
one
avoir
is
l'autoroute
no longer
pour que ce
used.
soit
We
une
should
vraie
think of
autoroute et non pas
some
une route saturée.
possibilities of
Quand
using
vous n'avez pas
both so
d'alternative,
that we can avoid
nous
saturation.
sommes en pleine
Because
saison des
in
pluies
the
aujourd'hui,
absence of options, as we
le
are dealing with
sol
the rainy
devient
season,
meuble,
the
très
soil
mouillé, les
is
poids lourds
wet, and
affaissent
all these
le
trucks, heavy
bitume.
trucks, will
Et c'est là où
impact
les routes s'endommagent
the
le plus.
roads.
Si vous n'avez
And
pas de
this
voie
is the moment
alternative,
when
de voie de
the
contournement,
roads will be
d'interdiction
destroyed. If there
d'emprunter
is no
les routes
other
durant ces
possibility,
périodes-là, c'est un
other
peu comme le
option,
dégel pendant
it
l'hiver
will be
en
very
Europe où on
difficult
interdit aux
because it is
véhicules de plus
like
d'un
in
certain
Europe when
poids
during some
d'emprunter
season
certaines routes. Ça doit pouvoir se faire chez nous, mais comme il n'y a pas de route
ban
alternative,
some
ça ne se fait pas. On endommage les
vehicles
routes, on
from
construit des
using
routes à
some of
durée
the
de vie
roads, as
beaucoup plus
we
courte.
don't have these
Donc, cette
options here. We
responsabilité
need to think
relève
of
de l'État qui doit réguler également.
including this,
Et
and the responsibility pertains
la
to the
maintenance
state that
encore au
should be
secteur privé.
in
Voilà ce que
charge
je
of
pouvais dire
regulation, and also as the private
d'entrée de jeu.
sector
Je vous
to
repasse la
do
parole.
the
Merci.
maintenance part. So this is what I wanted to share with you. Thank you. Over.
Thank you so much, Honorable Jean-Louis Billon, for such enriching insights on the private sector and the role it can play in who should pay for good roads. Next, we will welcome the reflections of Dr. Maurice Nati Mwamba, who, like I said, brings the history of roads and all of those incredible insights to our panel today. Welcome, Dr. Mwamba.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la
Thank you
modératrice.
so much, Madam Moderator.
Je voudrais remercier d'abord
Let me
l'initiative
start
qui a été
by
prise par le
commending
programme
you for
STP et avec
this
l'appui de l'Union européenne
initiative that
pour
has
organiser ce
been
webinaire qui est très
taken by
important aujourd'hui
SSATP
où
and the European
la question
Union.
de route, effectivement,
For the
devient de plus en
organization of
plus
this very
criable à cause,
important
n'est-ce pas, de l'accélération des
webinar
dégradations
on
liées
the
au changement
road,
climatique.
due to the fact
Alors,
that
la
this is
première
a
question
key
que vous posez
issue
me ramène
regarding
à dire
climate
simplement
change.
qu'il
Now, the
faut
question that you
que
are
tous ceux qui en
asking lead me
bénéficient,
to say that
c'est-à-dire
all the
en commençant par
beneficiaries,
le pouvoir public,
starting
parce que
with
faut pas
the
oublier
general
que
public, because
c'est à
we should
lui
not
que
forget
revient
that
régulièrement toutes les missions de collecte
all the
de la
mission in
fiscalité,
terms
tous
of
les éléments
the public sector, the
douaniers, en
government,
fait, tout ce qui
all
tourne
that
autour de l'activité
regard
économique qu'il
the
gère
economic
et pour
activities they
laquelle il
manage,
perçoit de l'argent, et de
everything,
l'argent qui a été
taxes
produit
and
en
everything.
utilisant la route. C'est pour ça que le rôle de
The
l'État
money
devient comme le rôle
was
premier,
produced
parce qu'il
while
est
using the road. This is the
au
reason why the
début
role of the
et à la fin
state
du
is
processus, parce
a
qu'il
key
est
one,
en
because they
charge
are at the
de la
beginning and also
gestion
at
et de
the
la
end
régulation de
of the whole
l'ensemble du
process. We
système
are in charge
économique,
of the
qui
regulation
est
of the whole
lui-même
economic
tributaire,
process and
utilisateur, n'est-ce
system,
pas,
and they
des
use
routes.
it
Tout
and
en
they use the
restant
roads
raisonnable,
throughout this
on
process,
doit également
while
faire
being
maintenant
also reasonable.
une sorte, n'est-ce pas,
We should
de
find room
précision,
for a sort of
trouver
precision
tous les usagers
specification
qui
and
bénéficient
identify all
directement de l'usage de la route,
the
c'est-à-dire
beneficiaries
que ce
of the
soit
road, be
les
it
industriels,
industries
les usagers directs. Et donc, autour,
or
n'est-ce
the
pas, de
different
tous ces
road
bénéficiaires,
users.
on va essayer de réguler
around all these
un niveau de
beneficiaries, we
taxation
will try
qui
to regulate
permet,
a
n'est-ce
level
pas,
of
à leurs
taxation
activités de se
that
dérouler
will
de manière
allow
rentable,
the
mais
activities
également à
to
assurer un
be
entretien
run
raisonnable de
smoothly
la route.
and be profitable
Aujourd'hui,
while
avec les efforts qui ont
maintaining
été
the roads and
déployés à
ensuring
travers
good quality
les différentes
roads.
initiatives,
Today, with
on
all the
constate que
different
ces
efforts
efforts doivent
deployed as
être
part of initiative, we
absolument
can see that if this
repensés
effort
pour à
should
la
be
fois les diversifier et les rendre plus
rethinked
efficaces,
in terms of
parce que la
diversification
route,
and also
malheureusement,
efficiency, because
constitue un élément
unfortunately, the road
essentiel
is a
pour
key
beaucoup d'activités,
element
beaucoup de secteurs,
for
parce qu'elle
many
intervient
sectors, many
aussi bien au
activities,
niveau
as it
de
is
l'unité de
it
production,
intervene
parce qu'on doit
at the
aller,
level
comme
of
disait mon
production unit,
prédécesseur,
because we
dans
need,
les zones de
as my
production,
predecessor
mais
said, we need to
également il
go
faut aller
to
au niveau des
into
marchés
production
et donc
areas, but
faire en
also
sorte que l'économie
to the
des produits qui
markets,
sont
just to make
transportés
sure
soit
that
garantie grâce
all
à des
the
coûts
products that
d'exploitation qui sont
are
relativement
transported are
abordables.
in good quality and also affordable for
Je vous remercie.
the population. Thank you.
Thank you for such crucial reflections, Dr. Mwamba. Indeed, it's everybody's responsibility, as you heard in his reflections. We all have to take a stand to ensure that our roads are well maintained from the government. It's an ecosystem across the board. It's just not the responsibility of one person. So let's hear our final initial reflection from Mr. Alan Munywa, who, sorry, I'm doing my best here, from Mr. Alan Munywa, who brings, like I said, the financial investment, climate financing, and private sector perspectives as well to the conversation. Welcome, and we want to hear from you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Patrice, and thank you to all the panelists so far for your reflections. I couldn't agree more with what has been shared. I think in the initial slides that were presented by the SSAT team, there was a comment that said, when roads fail, everyone pays. And I think that really passes the message that similarly, for us to all have good roads, then we all need to do our part. In my experience, and even from the experiences in East Africa and specifically in Kenya, we even notice situations where when roads need to be expanded or improved, obviously land acquisition then becomes a big issue, because for you to have a good functioning road, you need enough wayleave to have drainage and so on and so forth. And while one would expect that government would be the one to play this role of acquisition and compensation, you actually find very successful cases where the citizens themselves cede some of their own land. So in one way or the other, they may not be producing cash directly, but they're providing something to ensure that the project can proceed smoothly. So I think I'll simply echo what my fellow panelists have said, that indeed we all have a role to play, and as long as we play it, and that government as the custodian, as the publicly accountable entity, then is able to communicate, is able to exercise good oversight in bringing together all these resources from everyone, then we will have good roads. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Munywa, for such insightful comments. Indeed, when roads fail, everyone fails. And so the government, like he said, is our custodian, and it will help us to it can play the role of helping us to put all of our resources together, that we have the roads that power Africa's future. So thank you to our panelists for their initial reflections. And now we'll go into the debate. To our audience, we are seeing you. We see all of your comments coming in. So we hope you're feeling the energy already in the room, because it's about to get very heated in here in a good way. We're going to be discussing who should pay for good roads. by asking our panelists targeted questions aligned with their areas of specialization. First, we will go to Mrs. Josita Nouvel-Wento from the National Road Fund of Liberia. And we want to ask you, Mrs. Wento, we see that why do roads maintenance continue to be underfunded? Particularly with the work that you do on the ground in Liberia, you have a lot of insights to share on this. We see that roads maintenance continue to be underfunded, particularly along major economic corridors, while heavy investments are made in new construction. Why is that so? Mrs. Wento?
I was muted. I'm just unmuting it. Thank you, Patrice. I was saying, thank you. Specifically for Liberia, because we are a first generation road fund, it's different from the other road funds. Firstly, with these special funds, with these dedicated funds that we've seen in Africa, across Africa, in different generations, and for
I'm sorry, there are some audio issues, Madame Joseta. Maybe I would suggest you turn off your camera so that maybe that liberates some bandwidth. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to do this again. I hope it's clearer now.
Yes, it's a lot better.
Okay, so I was saying that for most countries, roads are underfunded because of the level of political interferences that are involved. I mean, there are a lot of reasons, but this across all of Africa seems to be relatively high. And it is for this particular reason that more and more funds are moving away from being government controlled to a more autonomous fund. Also, what we are seeing, for example, here in Liberia, before the road fund operationalization, there were a lot of roads done. And because a lot of these roads were not properly captured in terms of preventive maintenance, we got to a point where all of our roads altogether became a national emergency. So we established the fund. Now that we have the fund and we have started operating, the closer we get to these different political seasons, the more the focus of the fund shifts. Because for example, before I took this role, everyone in the country was concerned about road fund is raising a lot of money, but we cannot see what the road fund is doing. So for most people, for the public, it's all about what they see that quantifies to what you're doing with the fund. And like, our last speaker, Moyan, just said that when roads fails, everyone pay. We have had issues of key economic corridor that failed because they lack maintenance. We have bridges failed because they were not maintained in time. But regardless of all of these things, we see that governments in general prefer opening new contracts, that is, starting new road projects or doing capital investment, than doing the maintenance. So this is something that we are constantly something that we're constantly driving through awareness. We are making strong cases on the importance of having our roads maintained, and then also quantifying the cost that is associated with the maintenance, a timely or preventive maintenance versus what it takes us to keep these new rules or to keep opening these new rules, which put us in a heavy burden. because the more you're doing these new rules, they come with a heavy portfolio, financial portfolio. And then currently the sources of revenue that we have, and it's spread across, road funds. For most road funds, especially Liberia Road Fund, about 98% of our fund is generated from petroleum levy. But then you have a contract portfolio or a debt ratio of about $90 million, and you're generating just about $33 million a year. So clearly it has shown you the picture that what you're generating versus what you owe cannot match. But yet and still, more and more, new contracts are opening. So there should be stronger policy around governance. For example, if a fund is set up for maintenance, those that serve on the board, those that serve in the leadership, those that are coming in as grantors and other supporters to development must be very clear that fundings that are given for a particular sector, like the road sector, should be specifically used for maintenance and nothing else. I believe that with these adjustments in the policy, very strong adjustment in the policy, we will have more maintenance, and then the issue of maintenance work being underfunded will be addressed to a larger extent. Thank you, Patrice.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Wento, for sharing hands-on, on the ground insights of what goes in, on behind the scenes and why roads are being under-maintained and why governments prefer to start these new projects. But I would like to thank you for that. I would like to bring to the stage Mr. Billon, Mr. Jean-Louis Billon, to react to Mrs. Wento's remarks. I think he will be able to share. Someone who works directly in that sector and has a lot of experience. We are eager to hear what your insights are on what Mrs. Wento shared.
Oui,
Welcome,
merci.
Mr. Billon.
Oui, merci.
Thank you.
Alors, je suis interpellé par rapport à
Something caught my attention
l'entretien de route, le
when
dernier
it comes to road maintenance.
d'une piste qui
The last kilometer
jouxte une
of
entreprise privée
an
et
unpaved
le
road,
domaine public.
unpaved
Alors,
road
c'est toujours un
between
problème pour nous parce que en
private
réalité,
sector and companies.
aujourd'hui,
That's
c'est
what
le
it is.
privé,
I
l'entreprise
would
en
like to say
question,
that
à
it's always an
proximité,
issue for us
qui
because today
a
it's the
intérêt
private sector
à assurer cet entretien
that
simplement parce que elle en a besoin si elle
has
veut acheminer
benefits
ses produits le plus vite
from
possible. Quand bien même
maintaining this
ça
road
reste la
because
responsabilité de
the
l'État.
companies need
Alors,
these roads if they
la
want to
chose,
share
c'est
their
qu'il
goods or
faudrait
send
qu'on
it
ait
somewhere. But
une
road maintenance
incitation à pouvoir le faire.
should be the responsibility of the
Parce que
country,
c'est
the government.
une dépense
I
supplémentaire
think
qui grève la
there's a
compétitivité
need
des
for
entreprises
incentive
sans
measures
aide de l'État.
because it's an
Après,
additional fee
on peut toujours
and
trouver
there's no support from the
diverses formules,
government.
mais on ne peut pas
I
dégager
think
toujours l'État de sa
it's possible
responsabilité
to have
et se
different
substituer à l'État. À
options,
un moment donné,
but
on a constaté une chose,
companies
c'est que quand on
cannot
le fait
take on the role of the
systématiquement,
government.
l'État disparaît.
We saw
Comme
that
si l'État
when we do
décidait
it
qu'il y a quelqu'un qui le
preventively,
faisait, donc on
the
n'a plus besoin de
government
le faire.
just decides
Alors que la
not to do it
responsabilité est beaucoup
anymore,
plus
as if
importante,
it was
parce
our
que le jour
responsibility.
où il y a un
But I
accident ou
think
bien un
the
défaut
responsibility
de la
goes
route, il
beyond
faut une
all of that because
responsabilité.
if one day
Et
there's an
l'État ne peut pas se
accident
soustraire
or
complètement
there's an
à sa
issue on the
responsabilité.
road,
Donc,
there's a
je suis
need
d'accord avec
to have someone
votre remarque,
responsible,
mais
and
je n'ai
the
pas de
government
solution
can't
toute faite. Pour l'instant,
just
c'est nous qui suppléons,
leave it there.
mais ce n'est pas forcément une
For the
bonne chose.
meantime, I do not have a solution
Comme je
because
le dis,
we are the
ça
one
grève notre
dealing
compétitivité.
with it,
Et il faut voir
but
les
it's not a good
entreprises,
thing.
quand une route est bien faite ou pas.
Then,
Imaginez un camion qui fait
when a
3
road
rotations
is
dans la
well done
journée,
or not, let's
au lieu
take an
d'en faire une
example.
seule quand la route est
A
mauvaise.
truck
Donc c'est vrai
that
que quand les routes sont
does
mauvaises, tout le
maybe
monde paie. Parce
3
qu'après,
round
c'est le prix
trips
des
instead
produits
of
qui est plus
doing just
cher, c'est
one,
l'entretien des
just
véhicules qui est
because the
encore plus
road
cher. Donc
is
tout coûte
bad.
plus cher.
When the road is
Ce
not
que
well
l'on croit
maintained,
gagner
everything is
en ne le
more
faisant pas,
expensive. Transportation is
on le
more
perd
expensive. Time,
automatiquement
everything
sur
we think that we are
l'ensemble du coût de la vie en
gaining
réalité.
is
Donc voilà ce que
has consequences
je peux
on
dire.
life
C'est
itself.
une vraie question.
So this is
Pour
what I can
l'instant,
share.
le privé
I
le fait,
think it's
Mais
a real
il ne faut pas que
issue.
l'État
For the meantime, the private
se
sector
soustrait de cette
is
responsabilité.
maintaining the road, is taking the responsibility, but the state should act. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beyond, for your reflections. Indeed, the state should act as it is everybody's responsibility. We really welcome your perspectives, and we would like to thank you for sharing them. And thank you again, Mr. Beyond. Now we'll move on to Dr. Maurice Nyati Mwamba, who will tell us about the lessons that can be learned from successful road financing and road fund experiences across Africa. As I said earlier, he comes with a lot of history of roads. So, Dr. Mwamba, the floor is yours.
Merci beaucoup. Je pense qu'il faut commencer
Good
par
morning. Thank you very much. Thank you.
saluer ou rendre
I
hommage
think
aux initiatives qui ont été prises
it's important
à
to
la fin des
start
années
by
90
acknowledging the
par
initiatives that were
les partenaires
taken
techniques
at the
financiers,
end
notamment la
of
Banque
the
mondiale,
90s, the
en
initiatives of
prenant
the
cette
financial
question
partners,
de
especially
l'entretien
World Bank,
routier
because
autour
these
de
partners
l'initiative
took this
d'entretien
issue
routier
of
qui a conduit à la mise en
road
place des fonds routiers
maintenance
de deuxième
seriously,
génération.
and this helped
Ça a
for
été vécu
the
comme une sorte
implementation of
de
second
révolution parce
generation
que
road
cette fois-ci,
funds.
on donnait à
It was
l'entretien
experienced
routier
as a type of
une plus grande
revolution
visibilité
because
des
this time
moyens et
road maintenance
tout
had
l'espoir
better
était fondé
visibility.
autour, n'est-ce pas,
Road
de ces trois
maintenance
piliers qui avaient été
was at the
établis,
heart of hope,
notamment
and
leur
the hope was
conférer
around the
une
three
gouvernance
pillars.
claire, autonome
It was
au
about
plan
giving them a
juridique et
clear,
financier, avec
autonomous
tout le conseil
control,
d'administration, les audits et toute la
having
transparence qui
the
va.
legal
Ce pilier
aspect taken
était
into account, all the
soutenu ou
norms and the
accompagné
text.
par le second qui est
And this
celui
pillar was
des
supported
moyens, le pilier
by the
financier, c'est-à-dire la
second
mobilisation de
aspect that
ressources,
was
où des ressources ont
financial.
été affectées
So it was about
intégralement,
mobilizing the
notamment des
finances,
recettes,
and these
avec
finances
une
were
efficacité de recouvrement envisagée et pour
100%
lesquelles on
given while
se
taking into
donnait les
account
moyens
recovery
d'assurer une
funds.
réelle couverture
And
au
the
moins de
objective
70% des
is
besoins d'entretien routier,
there was the
notamment
need to
sur la
cover at
principale
least
recette qui avait été
70%
ciblée,
of the road
qui est
needs.
le carburant, tout en relevant ce qui a été dit
And
tout à l'heure,
from the
que
main, it came
effectivement
from the main
la seule recette
fuel
ne peut pas
levies.
être tirée en
I think
augmentation
it was
indéfiniment
mentioned
au
a
risque, n'est-ce
little
pas, de
bit earlier,
favoriser une
but
inflation qui
it
pourrait
cannot
créer
all
le
come
contre-effet.
from
Et
fuel
le
levy,
troisième et
or
dernier
it will have a different
pilier
impact.
était
It will be the
celui
other
de
way around.
l'opérationnel,
Then
c'est-à-dire
the
celui qui
third
devait
pillar was
garantir
the
l'efficacité,
operations.
en
It
essayant de
means
séparer
it was
les
about
fonctions de
efficiency,
financement à celles
making it
d'exécution
efficient by
à travers
trying to
donc la mise en
do
place
a
des fonds
difference
routiers
between
en tant
execution,
qu'institution
and
et
execution was about
agences
the
routières qui
implementation
devaient,
of
elles, s'occuper,
road
n'est-ce pas, de la
agencies
partie technique
and
sur
road
la
funds.
gestion
Road agencies were
des articles
supposed to be in
routiers.
charge of technical
Et autour, n'est-ce
aspects,
pas, de
especially when it comes to
ce
road
nouveau
assets.
paradigme qui avait été présenté,
I remember
on peut dire
at this
que
time there
les fonds
was
routiers
this
ont quand même fait du chemin parce
new
qu'on a vu se créer au niveau du
landscape. It
continent
was a new
plus
landscape.
d'une
And
trentaine
then
de fonds
the
routiers
road
sous cette
funds
forme, avec des fortunes diverses,
did a
bien
lot
sûr,
because there was around
mais on
30
a
road
plus ou
funds
moins élevé
with
la compréhension
different assets.
sur déjà le principe que
But I think
l'utilisateur
first,
devait en être le
we've
payeur
been
progressivement.
able to
Et les
make
fonds
people
routiers en
understand
ont
that the
fait effectivement
users
une
should
bonne
pay progressively,
raison,
and the road
digne de
funds
peut-être, mais en tout cas de proposer des solutions à travers les
should
nouvelles autres
suggest
taxes qu'on a vues
solutions through the new
apparaître autour, n'est-ce pas,
taxes,
des diverses redevances, des
the new
mais
taxes,
surtout
the new
en essayant de
contraventions,
faire vraiment participer maintenant le secteur privé
but
dans la
also
gestion de
making
la
sure
route
that
à
the
travers
private
ses
sector
affermages
was
ou les concessions
involved
autour des
in
péages et de pesage.
maintenance. And
Bien
that was
sûr
possible
que ça a
through
été un pas de
tolls
plus en termes
and also through
d'accroissement de
wait
revenus, mais tout
stations.
ceci à travers l'étude qui a été annoncée
All of
par
this
Madame
I
Océane et
remember
Monsieur
was
José, c'est
mentioned in
que les besoins
what was
d'entretien routier
mentioned
se
in
sont
the
encore
study.
rendus accrus avec les changements climatiques
study
donc
that
aujourd'hui,
Mr.
on voit à travers
Jose and
certains
Mrs. Ocean
fonds qui
mentioned
ne sont
this
plus nombreux,
morning.
comme les 35 ou
I know
la
today we
quarantaine que
can
je viens de
see through
citer,
some funds,
qui
there's not
ont
as many
osé, n'est-ce
funds
pas,
as
aller
in the
vers
past,
les banques,
but
c'est-à-dire
these
procéder par
funds
des levées de
can
fonds
today
bancaires
go
et
to the
en
banks.
contrepartie, n'est-ce pas, des recettes
It
à
means they
venir
have another
pour essayer
option
de consolider le
and
patrimoine
they
infrastructurel
can
actuel,
try
le
to
protéger
consolidate
contre les
the
dégradations futures, quitte
road
à ce que,
assets today,
à travers, n'est-ce
protect
pas,
these
ces
road
efforts
assets
que l'on
against
porte
future
aujourd'hui, on essaie de
damages.
réduire, n'est-ce pas,
And the
les efforts
objective
d'entretien
is
parce qu'on
that
aura
by the
contribué à
actions
réaliser
taken
des routes
today,
plus solides.
it should be
Mais
possible to
ceci
reduce the
montre tout à
impact
fait
and
les
protect
limites,
the roads because the
n'est-ce
road will
pas,
be
de
more
tous ces moyens qui ont
resilient.
été mis en place.
But all of
Et
this
c'est
is
pour ça
showing the
qu'effectivement,
limits
la
of
réflexion
everything that has been
continue,
implemented.
celle qui consiste à dire il va
That's the
falloir
reason
que
why
l'on réfléchisse, n'est-ce pas, pour
it's
trouver encore des
important
moyens
to
additionnels.
continue
Nous avons
thinking
tout à
of
l'heure
new
abordé
ways,
autour de la première question
additional
qui était la question
ways.
générale,
I remember
ce qui doit payer.
we had the very first
Là
question that
également, on
who
doit
should pay
revenir quand
for
même au
roads?
fait que
But I think when it
tout en
comes to
donnant
who
la
should pay for
responsabilité
roads,
au fonds
we should take
routier,
into account that
ceci ne doit pas
even if the
dédouaner l'État,
roads
n'est-ce pas, de
fund
celle qui est
has
la
the
sienne, n'est-ce pas,
responsibility,
d'apporter également des
it's also
contributions,
still the
c'est-à-dire
responsibility of the
des subventions
government.
complémentaires
The
pour
government should bring
garantir, assurer
complementary
l'entretien de
subsidies.
l'ensemble du réseau.
And the objective of
Si
these
ceci n'est pas fait,
subsidies should
naturellement,
be to
on va se
maintain the
retrouver
whole
avec des réseaux de plus en plus
network.
dégradés et
If it's not possible, at
le
the end
tissu
of the day, we
économique
will have
global
more and
général du
more
pays va en être
damaged road
affecté. Et je
network.
pense que
The economy
aujourd'hui,
of
en
the
tout
country
cas,
will be impacted. And I think
l'enseignement qu'on peut tirer, c'est
that the
les
lessons
fonds
we can
routiers
learn today
de première génération ont donné lieu à la deuxième
is that
génération.
for the
Et nous
first
sommes aujourd'hui
generation
amenés
road
à
funds,
constater
they
un essoufflement de cette seconde
led to the
génération.
second
Et
generation.
naturellement,
Today, we can
ça
see that
ouvre la
this
porte, n'est-ce
second
pas, à des
generation
réflexions vers d'autres fonds
is
qui sont susceptibles d'être
not
mobilisés, que ce
sufficient
soit les fonds
anymore.
verts,
So it
puisqu'on
means
a abordé
that there's a
aujourd'hui
need for
avec
other funds,
la bonne
like the
nouvelle du
green
changement
funds,
climatique
for
et les
example.
restrictions que cela
Because today
occasionne,
we're talking about
qu'il y a
climate
effectivement
change and
de
the
ce côté-là
impact of
peut-être
climate
des ouvertures
change.
qui sont possibles et d'autres
So
fonds
maybe try to take into account the
fiduciaires
other
qu'on peut
options,
imaginer.
the
En tout
other
cas, je pense que
possibilities.
les
And I
enseignements
think
sont tout à fait satisfaisants, je pense,
for the
aujourd'hui, pour
lessons,
montrer aujourd'hui la place de chaque acteur par rapport, n'est-ce pas, à ce besoin
today they are
d'accroître et
showing
d'augmenter
the role of each
ces niveaux de
actor,
financement en
each
faveur, n'est-ce pas,
stakeholders to
la protection
improve the
des actifs
funding
routiers.
to
Je vous remercie.
protect the road assets. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mwamba. He focused on efficiency, the need to consolidate current assets, take responsibility, and mobilize for the future, safeguarding the roads and assets we have today in order to ensure we have sustainable roads that power, again, our continent's future. Thank you, Dr. Mwamba. And we will now bring in Mr. Alan Munywa, who will react to what Dr. Mwamba just said. Welcome, Mr. Munywa.
Thank you, Patrice. I would like to start by commenting on at least the experience that I've seen on road funds, let's say specifically in Kenya. We've had, and to give credit where it's due, there's a very strong road maintenance levy fund that today currently collects, I believe, almost $1 billion every year. So we start by ticking the first box by saying they do have the ability and they have the longevity. So it's well entrenched in the mentality of the public that these funds shall be collected. And actually, in the past, they even did public campaigns, awareness, letting people know what these funds are for, and executing projects. So while the line between maintenance and rehabilitation is blurred, because sometimes when we say maintenance, we imagine it's simply doing some potholes and repairing some potholes and the rest. But in Kenya, the road fund has played a critical role in rehabilitating certain key corridors, and for this reason, it's then well respected and well accepted. And at a point, they did try to implement a program that would also attract private sector financing. So they implemented something called the annuity road program. So the design was that they would get the private sector, typically contractors or investors, who could build and then maintain these roads over 10-year period with the fuel levy fund paying for this maintenance over the course of the 10 years. Of course, some of these projects have run into issues, and I think some of the panelists have highlighted that road construction does not occur in a vacuum. It occurs within a political environment. And at times you'll have interference. So sometimes maybe not the most important or not the most priority projects are picked, but others are picked for one reason or the other. But I believe in there is a real demonstration of what is possible, that if we pick the right projects, you have a pool of capital that is collected already from the citizens, so everyone is paying, and then we can direct this capital to develop these specific roads. Then I truly believe we will have excellent results. So for me, I'll repeat that I think the preparation of projects and the prioritization of where to put these investments is critical, and then subsequently the communication and the public engagement effort by the government to ensure that you continue to have buy-in and ownership by the citizens, even as they pay these funds into these road funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Monua, for giving us that lesson from on the ground with Kenyan National Road Fund and sharing all of the insights and best practices that can help us ensure sustainable roads for our continent's future. Now we will go over to, thank you again, Mr. Monua. We'll go on over to Mr. Jean-Louis Billon. And Mr. Billon, we are interested in knowing how should major industries that use and benefit from the network contribute more beyond the usual fuel levies, tolls, and fines? It's something you would have firsthand, experience with that. That's why we thought to ask you that question. So we want to hear your thoughts on that. Thank you. Welcome.
Merci. Bon, comme je le disais, nous, ça
Thank
fait
you. As I
intégralement
was
partie de
saying,
notre budget
it is part and parcel
d'entretenir
of our budget.
les routes que nous côtoyons.
We maintain the
Et si on
roads
ne le
that
fait
we
pas,
use.
c'est nous-mêmes qui
If we
perdons.
don't do it, we will
Malheureusement,
be the loser.
nous n'avons pas de retour là-dessus ou de
Unfortunately, we
compensation.
don't have any return on investment.
Donc, imaginons
No
un système
compensation.
où on
Let us
contribuerait,
imagine a system where you
mais
contribute.
comme on dit, il faut qu'on voit le résultat. Parce que
We
si on
should
se met à
see
contribuer
outcome
directement
because you are
dans un fonds
contributing
et que nous
in
n'avons
a
pas
fund,
nos routes
but
entretenues
there is
autour
no
de nous, ce serait un
route to
véritable
maintain
désastre pour nous.
around us. It will be
Donc,
a sort of
la
disaster
gouvernance étatique
for us. So,
dans la gestion des
state
fonds
governance
d'entretien
in
routier
the
est
management
cruciale
of
ici.
road
Il ne faut
maintenance
pas que ces fonds
funds is
d'entretien
key.
qui brassent
These
beaucoup
funds
d'argent,
that
suffisant pour l'entretien,
collect
peut-être pas pour la
large
construction de
amount
nouvelles
of
routes,
money,
mais en tout cas
enough
pour
for maintenance,
l'entretien,
not
ce
to
que
build
nous
new
savons
roads, but
est
for
suffisant
maintenance.
ici en Côte
To our
d'Ivoire.
knowledge, this is
Sauf
very,
que
very
il est
sufficient
arrivé
here in
que
Côte
ce fonds
d'Ivoire.
serve
But
à d'autres
it
fins.
happened that
Et c'est
this
ça le
fund is
problème.
used for other
Donc,
purposes.
je ne peux pas
There
vous
lies the
dire voilà la
issue.
solution, mais je peux vous dire,
I can
nous
see that
nous
the
contribuons
solution
déjà
is hidden in what
directement.
we are saying.
Nous sommes
Just to
prêts
say
à
that
le
we are
faire autrement,
contributing
mais
already and we are
il faudrait
ready
que
to
nous
do
ayons
it.
un vrai
Otherwise,
résultat.
that we need to make sure that
Maintenant, toutes les
the
formules,
results
comme on dit,
are
sur
ready and
le
observable
prélèvement au niveau de
when it comes
carburant,
to the
ou bien
levy
les routes à
on
péage qui sont en train de se
fuel
développer massivement en Côte d'Ivoire aujourd'hui.
toll
L'ensemble des routes
bridges
sont
that
en train
are
de devenir
being
des routes
built
à
here in Côte
péage.
d'Ivoire.
Ça ne pose aucun problème si
Most
ces
of
routes sont
the
entretenues.
roads are equipped with
Pour
toll. There is no
le
problem
carburant,
for
ça a
us.
ses limites.
For the
Il faut
fuel,
une
there are some
combinaison
limitations because there should
carburant
be a combination
autre type de taxation.
between the fuel and other
Mais
types
sachant
of
que
taxation.
à un moment donné, le
Knowing
contribuable
that
africain n'est pas
At a
différent
certain
du
moment,
contribuable
the African
occidental.
taxpayer is not different from the
En
one from
Occident, vous n'êtes
the
pas
Western
constamment en train de
countries.
payer par des
In
formules
Western
diverses et
countries, we are not
variées
always
l'entretien et la construction des
paying
routes.
through some
L'État joue
formulas
son
for
rôle
the
et
maintenance and the
il y a des systèmes
building
de
of
péage pour les
roads.
autoroutes,
The
mais
state plays its role,
le
but,
commun des mortels ou les entreprises ne sont pas
or the
interpellés à chaque fois pour l'entretien des routes. C'est un problème
laymen are not
africain
called
parce que les
on a
routes,
daily
une fois
basis
construites,
for
ne
road
sont pas
maintenance.
toujours bien
This is a real
entretenues
issue in
ou,
Africa
dès le
because roads
départ,
are built but
ne sont
not
pas
well
bien
maintained,
construites.
and they are not well constructed.
Il faut le dire parce que quand vous avez une
Let
route
us
avec
say it
une épaisseur
clearly,
de
because when it
bitume
comes
beaucoup trop
to
faible, on
what
sait très
we
bien
need,
que
if
c'est une
it is
route
a
qui sera
small,
limitée dans le
let's
temps.
say
On
the
a vu des
length
routes
of
ici, au bout de la deuxième année, qui étaient complètement
the road
dégradées.
is not wide
Et
enough,
ça,
and
payer pour ça, croyez-moi, ça fait mal. Donc,
just after
quel
few
système
minutes, it will
avoir?
be destroyed.
Je pense que ce panel devrait nous offrir
which system
les alternatives,
will be
les possibilités que nous
adequate?
avons. Je ne sais pas comment ça se passe
I think
dans
that
d'autres pays. Est-ce qu'il y a des success
the webinar
stories
should
dans la
share with
construction et
us.
l'entretien
I
des
don't
routes
know about the success
ailleurs
stories when it comes
en
to
Afrique?
road
Mais
construction
ce que
and
je peux vous dire, c'est
maintenance
que en ce qui
elsewhere in
concerne la Côte
Africa, but
d'Ivoire,
let's say that for Côte d'Ivoire,
ça doit être amélioré.
we need
Merci.
to improve the system. Thank you.
Merci, Mr. Billon. You see, I want to speak a little bit of French now. Thank you. Thank you so much for such on-the-ground insights and also helping us to gauge where we need to go in this conversation around the roads and how we maintain finance and bring in the different resources. So thank you again, Mr. Billon. Now we will move on to our last question for the session. We see all of your questions. We see you, our audience, our diverse audience joining us from all over the world. We see all of your questions and we will come over to you shortly. But before we do that, let us invite Mr. Alan Munyua to share with us whether climate finance and adaptation funds should play a greater role in protecting road assets from floods and extreme weather, and what innovations should we look for in terms of climate financing mechanisms.
Yeah. Thank you, Patrice. Maybe to go back to the subject about project preparation, I think this is an area where whether it's governments or funds developed by the development partners and the rest, including the World Bank and similar groups, could really play a role is on preparing projects. So doing the detailed feasibility studies, to understand what risks might arise as this infrastructure is being developed. So certainly, due to climate, this could be issues to do with flooding. We live we are close to the Rift Valley in Kenya, or the Rift Valley runs through Kenya, so some seismic activity is also an issue, maybe not related to climate, but those are risks that one has to clearly identify. Then you have and even things to do with the community itself. It may not necessarily be climate related, but how do you impact pedestrians or people crossing from one point to the other, or animals for that matter? We are proud of our wildlife in this part of the world, so it's a critical thing. Actually, as you're driving on main highways, you can come across elephants. But how do these elephants safely coexist with the people? So I think at the preparation stage, I believe that is a critical element that they could play. In one of the projects that I have been involved in was involved in the development and the financing. One of the things we also saw some of the project lenders and with a climate element propose, and we were developing that solution. This was a PPP project, a private public partnership project, So it was it was a highway project to be developed and financed by the private investors. But there was a bit of a gap between the amount that potentially could be collected from tolling the road. And we were developing like a fast loss tranche. So it was not a classic viability gap funding, but an amount that would enable the government to top up the amount that was payable to the investors. So this was a critical pillar of the financing because without this, the financing was just not going to work. So certainly, I think the short answer to whether climate funds or adaptation funds could play a role, my answer is absolutely. But just to reiterate that I think they play a role to complement projects that are already well prepared, projects that are already rational, projects that are already, let's say, critical projects. They cannot make they cannot make a bad project good, but they can make a good project better. So that's what I would say. Thank you.
What a powerful conclusion, Mr. Monua. You cannot make a bad project good, but you can make a good project. I think that's what you said. I like that framing. Thank you. We'll bring in Mrs. Josita from Nouvelle Wento from the Liberia National Road Fund of Liberia for a brief reaction so that we move on to our engaging audience. We have a few questions. Some of them have already been answered in the chat by our team. And then the rest, we will continue the conversation. As you know, this is a series. So we will continue engaging and seeking solutions together. Mrs. Wento, let's hear from you before we go over to our audience.
Thank you very much, Patrice, and the entire SSATP. I think this is one of the questions that bonded me and the SSATP team. I'm very passionate.
Can you kindly turn off your camera to help us, move through this quickly? We are having a technical glitch. We appreciate if you can turn off your camera.
Okay. I hope that I'm
better
clear
now.
now.
Yes.
Okay. So I will just go quickly into it. Climate change is no longer a future problem because we are already experiencing the effect and the impact of these different climatic indicators. So firstly, in terms of, I will start from down and come up. In terms of innovation, what I would like to recommend to partners that are invested into this particular pillar is to focus more on the capacity building and development, designing programs that just addresses the tip of the issue does not give a sustainable solution. For example, we have had over the years, because I remember in 2009, I was one of the panelists again for another event that was talking about climate change. And we had a handful of people travel to get these specialized skills. But it appears that it is not sustainable. So what can we do to have a better grip on how we approach these climate issues? Usually, development partners will give some funding and say, for example, this is going to be for drainage cleaning. Okay, you clean the drains, and after 6 months, you have these problems reoccurring. That is not sustainable. What is sustainable is, one, build on the capacity of people first. We want to build the capacity of those that are already exposed to the field of maintenance or the different engineering level. We want to build the capacity at that level, continuous education at that level. And we have to work with the local governments to ensure that these capacities that are being built are routine. Because if you build a capacity and after a couple of months that person gets relocated or removed from the post, then the problem remains. The next thing is, if we really want to have a massive impact, we must invest intentionally into the educational system. Rather than sending people abroad, a handful, by supporting the curriculum or developing a curriculum around climate impacts, the resilience, and all of these things will give that sustainability. Now, more so to the issue of the damages to road infrastructure. For example, like in Liberia, most of our infrastructures that were built, they were built since the 1970s. Some of them were built in the 50s. And as you may be aware that the population growth and the pressure that is on these infrastructures are overwhelming. So some of the materials that were used, for example, for the construction of drains, because now we have more water pour, downpour of rain, these infrastructures can no longer contain. So we see flood plains, we see floods are developing everywhere. So for climate financing to have a better impact, we want to first of all look at all of the roads that we're going to be maintaining from the scoping stage. We want to know whether the drains, whether the slopes, whether the outlets of the different, drains are clearly designed and they are constructed to withstand the maximum volume of water or whatever that's going to be flushed through those drains. We want to also be very intentional about our environmental and social impact assessment. Most times you will see in the project that the donor wants you to do an environmental and social impact assessment before you do a new road construction or before you do the maintenance of a corridor. But then there is no one there that is doing the follow-up in terms of the monitoring and the evaluation of how well these contractors are implementing these ESIAs. So with that, I'll just say that we need to invest more into data collection, we need to invest more into education, and we need to have an active monitoring and evaluation program developed for these climate impacts.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Josita Nuva-Winto, and thank you to all of our distinguished panelists for your active contribution, your practical insights. And now we want to go over to our audience, our diverse and engaging audience from all over the world. We have some questions that will continue to engage with you, our panelists. We're going into the Q&A session briefly so that we wrap up very quickly. Somebody asked, is it correct that roads in Africa are mostly funded through the fuel levy as a constant source of income? But what happens with the introduction of electric vehicles? Some of these questions were already, like I said before, they were already answered in the chat. And we will get the panelists to respond to these few questions that we will ask now, and we will continue the conversation. We are here to continue talking. As we talk, we take action and we make an impact. So that's the first question. And anybody on the panel can feel free to answer this question about whether it is correct that roads in Africa are mostly funded through the fuel levy as a constant source of income. But what happens with the introduction of electric vehicles? The second question is, one important, how do we make maintenance attractive? Decision makers often prefer new construction because it is visible and politically rewarding, but every new road also creates a future maintenance obligation. So maintenance may be less glamorous, but as we said, it protects assets, saves money, and keeps communities connected. So how do we make it more attractive and visible? Those are the questions we have for now. And feel free, any of our panelists, to jump in quickly and answer those questions. And also, okay, go ahead.
So, as being the only lady on the panel, apart from you, the moderator, I guess I would jump in ladies first, right? For the Liberia National Road Fund, with the issue of electric vehicles, we have already started the study because we intend to introduce this as a revenue stream. And one of the areas that we're looking at is the distance or the mileage covered in a year. So reports have estimated that in a year, an average person drives about 40,000 kilometers. So when you are going to do your vehicle registration at the driver's license and registration company, I don't know, whatever it is in different countries, your mileage are evaluated, as you're doing a safety test of the vehicle is evaluated, and then you are charged a fee for the entire year. So you give them a coupon, and then that should take you for the entire year. In the instances where people decide to be dishonest, because of course you have to plan for the honest ones and the dishonest one, we intend to have a fine that will repel you from being dishonest. So I just wanted to share that one of the low hanging fruits in terms of tapping into additional source of revenue generation for electric vehicle would be using the mileage that they travel.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Newveld, on your Wento, for your insights on that question. Another panelist can jump in to address this first question or the second one on how do we make maintenance attractive? Because it seems like it's not so attractive. How do we make it attractive? And then with the introduction of electric vehicles, how do we prepare and plan given what Madam Wento shared as well? So, any of our panelists can jump in. Yes.
If you allow me.
Si vous me permettez, je voudrais effectivement revenir sur une allusion qu'avait faite notre collègue
to come back
Jean-Louis Billon,
on a comment made by
disait
Mr.
il
Jean-Louis
n'était pas
Billon.
tout à fait opposé à ce qu'il
He
y ait des
said he
perceptions,
wasn't
mais
fully
il faut que ça
against
aille à l'entretien de la route.
the levies,
C'est une question
but it has
importante
to
dans la
go for
gouvernance.
road maintenance.
Ce qui est important
It's
quand
important
on met
in
en place ce genre de
government.
mécanisme, c'est que vraiment il faut
What's
que ça
important
fonctionne bien,
for this
c'est-à-dire
government, for
que
these
les
mechanisms,
ressources
is to make sure that these
de
mechanisms
l'entretien routier ne soient
function
pas
properly
détournées
and make sure
par
that the
d'autres
resources for
préoccupations,
fund
puisque
maintenance are
parfois les
not
mécanismes de
used
gestion
for
de ces fonds
other
routiers ne sont pas
elements.
si
Because
solides pour
sometimes the
pouvoir préserver,
mechanisms to
protéger ces
manage
ressources.
the road funds are not solid
Maintenant,
enough
allons
to
vers
protect
la
the
question
resources.
sur les véhicules électriques.
Next, let's move to
S'il
the
y a une chose qui est
issue, the
vraie, que
question
le
on
véhicule
electric
soit
vehicles.
électrique, qu'il soit à énergie
There's
fossile,
one thing that is true,
il
either
utilise
it's
la
an
route.
electric vehicle
Donc,
or
on est tout à
a
fait
vehicle
conscient
using
que tout utilisateur de la route, certainement, dans une des questions qui a été
fuel,
posée, est interpellé comme usager et
whatever the
devrait
vehicle is using, the vehicle will always
en
use the
payer
road.
l'usage. Donc,
So it means
il
that if you
s'agira
use the road,
progressivement, à
you
travers, comme l'a dit
should pay
ma
for the road.
prédécétrice,
Exactly
étudier
like the
les
lady before me
mécanismes
said,
les plus
it will
adaptés
be
pour
important
pouvoir
to
faire
see the
payer
best
l'usage de la route en
mechanisms
fonction, n'est-ce pas,
and make
du type
sure
de véhicule
that
qu'il utilise.
there's
Certainement
pay
que pour le moment, ce sont des véhicules
for
légers,
there's
mais
people pay
on va
for
avoir une
using the
tarification qui est
route,
proportionnelle, n'est-ce pas,
depending
à son
on the
usage.
type of cars.
Et je pense
So if the car is
que ça
heavier,
n'exempte
then the
pas
price
le paiement.
should be
La
different.
préoccupation de
But
notre
I think the government should still
celui qui a posé la question,
contribute.
c'est de voir quel sera le moyen de collecter
Then
l'argent
it's about
chez ceux
knowing
qui
what will
utilisent
be
l'électricité.
the option,
Surtout
the main
qu'il va
to
prétendre
collect
que
the funds
l'électricité est une
from
électricité
people using
verte. Mais la
electricity
route qu'il
cars,
utilise
electric
malheureusement,
cars,
avec son électricité
because
verte,
it will be said
est
that the
utilisée et donc
road
va être
will be
entretenu et
used,
devra
even if they
transférer
use
une partie,
green
n'est-ce pas, des
energy.
économies qu'il
So
tirerait
since they will use the road
de l'énergie
and the
fossile
parts of the
à l'entretien de la
economy
route, en tout ce qui concerne
should be
vraiment
shared,
ce potentiel
should
petit
be
patrimoine commun
directed
qu'est
to
la
road
route. Parce
maintenance.
qu'il
And
s'agit
thanks to
ici des
maintaining the
routes
road, we will
publiques.
be able to protect
Je vous remercie.
road assets because they are public roads. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mwamba, for your incredible insights. And to all of the other panelists, if you can jump in quickly, we are concluding now. If you have insights to share on those two questions, please jump in quickly before we conclude our panel. And if we don't have any contributions from our panelists, we want to say thank you to you, our distinguished panelists, for your time and insights. We've learned a lot. It's been an engaging and constructive conversation today here on how good roads connect us all and who should pay for them. Our engaging audience, your chats, your questions have been very crucial to this conversation, as well as your engagement. Our team has done their best to respond to some of your questions in the chat, and you saw that our panelists were able to engage with some of your questions as well. Let us continue this conversation. The conversation around roads will not end today, and this is why this webinar series is important to help us to keep discussing the good roads that connect us all and how we can use them responsibly and ensure that we put in the right resources and tools, because they're not just about taking us from one place to the other. So much goes into having good roads. And today we are left with the reflections on who should pay for them. And so that has been our conversation, from sustainability, climate financing, maintenance, rehabilitation, resources, you name them. Good roads connect us all. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward from our SSATP team. We thank you. Follow the conversation on LinkedIn as well as its SSATP social media platforms, and its lead, Ocean Kewu, and Jose Codivia on LinkedIn. Let us continue this conversation. It's been exciting being your moderator, and I wish you all a beautiful month ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bonjour.